1982 Tide carried their coach down the church steps to a waiting hearse for the last journey for Coach Paul Bear Bryant. Within 15 minutes of the end of the service, the cars had lined up for the funeral to Birmingham. Matt Coulter has more on the first leg of that trip down 10th Street here in Tuscaloosa. Had already begun to line the street beside Bryant Stadium. They waited patiently, in silence, to pay their last respects to the man they had grown to love and respect. By the time the funeral procession had gotten to Bryant Stadium, the crowd had grown to thousands of people now lining 10th Street as the motorcade passed. The buses passed, carrying and players. Following the buses, the hearse. In it, the coffin carrying Paul Bear Bryant. An almost deafening silence drew over the thousands on hand.
What do the numbers 323, 85, 17 have to do with anything? Sounds like a combination, doesn't it? Actually, it is. It's a combination from being one of the greatest football coaches in history, and definitely the most loved.
Close to 300 cars then proceeded to crawl slowly up 10th Street towards the Coliseum. The thousands of roadside until the very last car had passed. The procession then began to make its way to Birmingham, where Jenny Burleson was in Sky 13.
Paul William Bryant, September 11th, 1913 to January 26, 1983. Paul was also known as the Bear. He got his nickname when he was 13 and he wrestled a carnival bear. How tough is that? Seriously.
Sad shock. Anybody that was associated with Coach Bryant, it's a sad day, and he touched so many people, and you hate to see him go. The main reason you can.
After 323 wins, Paul Bryant retired. He died 28 days after playing his last game. He said he was a tired old man that never got tired of football. This man is a legacy, not just for the state of Alabama, but for the entire nation. Everybody knows Alabama. In the 60s and 70s, Alabama was the winningest team in college football. Regardless of whether you like to scream War Eagle or Go LSU Tigers, no matter who you're for, everybody knows and has a certain respect for Alabama. You have to. Paul Bryant is the reason we have that respect for that.
Became perhaps one of the most loving tributes to the legendary coach. As the 4-mile-long procession made its way along the interstate, large crowds gathered on overpasses to pay their last respects. Some wore the traditional crimson and white in honor of the man they consider a hero. Many carried signs expressing a heartfelt message. Among the mourners, there was little talk. Perhaps a whispered remembrance of the Bear now and then. Many brought their young children, saying they want them to remember Coach Bryant and what he stood for. When the funeral procession passed by, conversation came to a halt, and each mourner said a personal goodbye.
In this vlog, as you've noticed, there are cuts back and forth of the news from his funeral. I was there, not here, not at the funeral, not in Tuscaloosa. I was there as a spectator. We got up. My mom got us up. We loaded up in the station wagon. We got on the interstate and headed towards Tuscaloosa. We went one exit up, turned around to come back the other way so that we'd be on the same side of the interstate as the procession. We parked on the side of the interstate with thousands of other people. Thousands of people lined the interstate that day. It was a funeral procession like I've never seen before in my entire life. It was bigger than I've seen for any celebrity or president. I've never seen anything like it. It was like 300 cars. It took forever. And when we were standing on the side of the interstate, everybody was chatting and talking about their memories of the Bear and the games, like the 1979 Sugar Bowl with the famous goal line stand where the Alabama defense totally warded off Penn State 1 yard away from their field, from their goal, and not letting them make that touchdown. Alabama was incredible. They were a force to be reckoned with, and it was because of Bear Bryant. When the funeral procession came into view down the interstate, you could see it maybe about half a mile away from where I was coming down the interstate. A reverent hush fell over the crowd. Nobody said a word. Hats came off, hands went over hearts as it drove by. It was the most awe-inspiring, the most reverent, the most somber that I've ever seen. And even as a 12-year-old girl, I remember it clearly. I remember the emotions that everybody felt. We didn't just lose a football coach. We lost a legend.
Roll call of former Alabama players and former and present assistant coaches. Among them, the current Alabama head football coach, Ray Perkins. Auburn's Pat Dye, an assistant until 1973. Texas A&M coach Jackie Sherrill, who played Bryant in the early 60s. All-American Leroy Jordan, later a star with the Dallas Cowboys. And Florida head coach Charlie Bell, another Bama player of the 60s. New York Jets Richard Todd and Marty Lyons were also there. So was former Tennessee coach Bill Battle.
You would think that his grave would be by a gigantic statue of him, but actually his statue resides by Bryant-Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa. His family actually had a plot here. His family wanted to keep it low-key. But obviously, as you can see, fans do come. They leave change and little tokens. And of course, obviously, things come and get changed out from time to time. Today is actually, yesterday was technically the first day of the college football season, but today the first game is being played. So I thought it was a fitting time. Here's his family plot. There's Paul. And here's Mary. September 1st, 1915 to August 26, 1984. May. Bryant Tyson. March 15th, 1936. July 26, 1988. Let's clear her up a little bit. There you go.
May, okay. Is that his daughter?
Ida Mae Fulmer. March 26, 1893. February 17th, 1984. There's a lot of 26s in this family.
Yeah.
Martin Fulmer, September 9th, 1884. October 4th, 1959.
1884. Wow.
His gravesite is so well beloved and so well visited. I don't know if you noticed, but in the small footage clip of us driving into Elmwood Cemetery, I don't know if you noticed that we're following a red line. The red line was actually painted on the road to show you where his grave is, because it is so popular. And then just mere feet from the side of the road, there he is. A man famous for smoking and drinking, famous for leaning against the goal post with his plays rolled up in his hand, and famous, as always, for that houndstooth hat. Still the greatest.